Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And we are deviating from the schedule today, actually. We are going to speak about, what was it? Danger Mouse was on the agenda this week. We are instead going to move that to another week down the line. With the news of Kevin Conroy passing away over this past week, we felt that it would make a lot more sense to pay tribute to the man who is essentially he's Batman he was Batman for many people, and to
the longest
myself
running
included,
Batman.
Yes, easily the longest running Batman.
Yeah,
but just terrible. I hate it when this happens. I hate it when someone we like passes away. It's not. Yeah. It's. I mean, what? There's not like. What do you even say about that? He was a complete, total icon in the voiceover world, and it hit home for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. I was very surprised. And, I just wanted to start watching Batman. There's not really any other way to process that.
Yeah.
But it just sucks. I would have liked to have met him and possibly worked with him at some point in my life.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I'm an aspiring voiceover artist myself. I do some e-learning, mostly e-learning. I've done a couple of audiobooks. And I'm on my way to getting commercial projects too. But for now, I do the e-learning, and I also do I've done a couple of audiobooks, and I like that a lot. But that's besides the point. This is not about me. This is about Kevin Conroy. So we are Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that talks about the weirdest in pop culture, whether it's a TV show like we're about to do, or video game series, a person, in fact, that we have talked about people, more in their more from their personas, more from their musical personas, if we've ever talked about individuals, and we've also talked about some authors too. We've never really talked about specifically just an actor as they were. And it just sucks.
Yeah.
But
it was,
But yeah, to just continue that, you can find us wherever. I'll just wrap it up really nice and sweet before we can start talking. But you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave a review if you can. We would really appreciate that. You could also find us on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/whydoesthisexist with a question mark. You can also find us on Why Does This Exist Show. Or whydoesthisexistpod.com, excuse me. You can email us at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. I don't know for how long. Not because of the Musk thing, but just because I have no idea if there's even going to be a Twitter. I haven't used it in a long time. So Yeah, I don't know. But you can find us on Facebook too, and you can send us some weird stuff. People do that. Sometimes they'll tag us in like weird videos of people doing barbaric acts of, bizarre things like making buff cartoon cakes.
What?
Yeah, somebody sent us a picture of someone who makes buff
I think we
cakes.
discussed this last time or a couple weeks ago. We had said the same thing.
Yeah, and someone else sent us like somebody like squeezing pus into a cocktail once. Someone, I don't know, somebody sends like these people send us strange things and we love it because it's hilarious. But yeah, that's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues. So let's get on with the goddamn show. This was it was terrible news.
Yeah,
like I didn't want to come home to that. Like I was in the middle of work and I was like, "What the like really?"
Yeah,
like I was like, "How?" And just sucks.
It does. I was already having a really shitty day that day, and that just like was like the shitty topper of the whole day. And like, you know, you had texted me at first, and then I like looked at like my phone at like Facebook or something, and everyone was posting about it, and I was like, or I don't know if I saw it on Reddit, I don't remember, but I looked at my phone and I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, it was like so bad, and you know, Kevin Conroy for me was my Batman. You know, he was the Batman that I grew up with. You know, obviously, you know, there was the movies and stuff, but aside from like the Tim Burton ones, like the Batman movies were kind of shitty until we got the Christian Bale.
Right.
You know,
we talked about Batman and Robin at large.
Right. Right. So, you know, a lot of the Batman media I consumed was in the form of the cartoons, the DC animated universe, which, Batman the Animated Series was the first show of the DC Animated Universe that launched it, and really, I think it was the success of Batman the Animated Series that was able to, like, kind of make it so there could be a DC Animated Universe. Because, you know, the early 90s was still a time where cartoons were seen really as, like, just kids' things, and they were, like, goofy, and you know, there was some exceptions, but it was still largely like a kid's thing. And Batman the Animated Series was made for kids, but it had a lot of darker themes that you didn't see in Saturday morning cartoons at the time. And, you know, it really kind of made cartoons as a viable medium for, you know, teens and young adults, you know? And, you know, like I said, without Batman the Animated Series, there just isn't a DC Animated Universe. And there was so many shows that came after, you know, Superman and Static Shock, Justice League Unlimited, plus all the movies that came out. There was a ton of Batman movies, and they like Batman Beyond, and you know, it all really like it's all thanks to Batman the Animated Series, and of course the voice talents of Kevin Conroy and you know, Mark Hamill and others. And it really is just, it's like devastating, you know, it's like one of my childhood heroes, you know, is gone. It's almost like the same impact as when Steve Irwin died, you know. It's like just a piece of my childhood that's like completely gone. And you know, it really sucks.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, Kevin Conroy is just, not only is he, like, the longest running Batman, like, he played Batman for over 30 years.
He's the best one. He brought the most life to that character. He brought...
Yes.
It's all of these nuances and all of the deep thought that he put into the character, and, you know, obviously there's a bed of research from all the years of the comics, but every actor leaves behind their imprint on the character. Not everybody does it the same. There's always little nuances, but his nuances were, I think, the most noticed. You saw Batman so much. That was really the only medium where you saw Batman vulnerable, where you really got to understand Bruce Wayne and you got to understand the challenges that he's going through because of all the extra work that Conroy put into this.
Yeah.
And it's hard to talk about this. It's hard to talk about him. I mean, but everything that he put into that role, he put a piece of himself in there, and he really fully established that he is the best Batman. He is Batman. There's no other way to describe it. And everything that he did, even with cartoons that were coming out now, I know the animated series actually wasn't really on for too long. It was only on for maybe
3 years.
3 years.
The original
was
run was 3 years,
and then they brought it back with the New Adventures.
Well, there was 1994, and it began airing under The Adventures of Batman and Robin.
That's right.
And then in 97, it came back as the New Adventures, the New Batman Adventures, and that was on Kids WB.
And then they had done the regular Justice League show, and then they also had Batman Beyond, where he was old man Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Which, interestingly, he would reprise his role as old Bruce in, I believe, the CW in the Arrowverse in, I believe it was Legends of Tomorrow. Or it might have been Arrow.
It was Batwoman, actually, on the...
Okay, it was Batwoman.
But it is part of the Arrowverse.
Yes.
In the Crisis of Infinite Earths, and this is only, live action portrayal. But he... even in, any newer Batman cartoons or video games or anything, I wouldn't watch it if he wasn't doing it, or if I would check it out and I heard somebody else's voice, I would just say, well, that's not Batman. So I'd turn it off. It's not to discredit any of the other actors in the role. They did a very good job, but they're just not Kevin Conroy. There's nothing that it's the same thing with any Joker. If it's not Mark Hamill on a cartoon Joker, then I'm not really gonna watch it.
Yeah.
No disrespect to any of the other actors portraying the Joker. It's just, you're not Mark Hamill. There's nothing that you could do about it.
I was reading an interesting article, a tribute to Kevin Conroy, and it was saying that, he was really the first Batman actor that made Batman, portrayed Batman as the true self, and Bruce Wayne as the disguise. In other words, Batman is really Bruce Wayne's personality, and Bruce Wayne, the billionaire, is just the disguise he puts on for people. But he, truly is Batman. And he did that by basically doing Batman in his regular voice. When they were casting actors for Batman the Animated Series, everyone was kind of doing this, half whisper, gruff, I'm Batman. That all the actors that portrayed Batman in the movies did. Even Michael Keaton in the Tim Burton Batman, kind of changed his voice. When he was Bruce Wayne, he'd use his regular speaking voice, and then when he was Batman, he's I'm Batman, like that.
Yeah.
And Kevin Conroy was the first actor that just used his regular speaking voice as Batman and changed his voice to do Bruce Wayne.
Huh.
He kind of made his voice a little bit higher and a little bit more pleasant when he did the voice of Bruce Wayne.
I never noticed that.
Yeah. So it was really, Batman the Animated Series was the first time that, at least on animation, that it was kind of portrayed as Batman being the dominant personality rather than Bruce Wayne, and Batman is the true personality.
That adds another dynamic to the relationship that he has with the Joker.
Exactly. Yes.
That makes it so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the truest representation of what Batman really would be like anyway. There is a book on the psychology of Batman, and it takes a deep dive into it. I have not yet read that one, but I have read The Philosophy of Batman, and that was very good. It's been a long time since I read that one, and I'd have to track it down and get it again. But that was a great find at Shakespeare. Yeah, was it? Yeah, that was a great find at Shakespeare and Co. by Brooklyn College. May it rest in peace.
Yeah.
$6 well spent. But I never noticed that he had done that in his regular speaking voice. I thought that he had lowered his voice to be Batman. I didn't realize that
he did. He did lower it slightly, but it was basically his regular speaking voice. Like if you listen to him in interviews and stuff, it sounds like his Batman. It's like you're listening to Batman talk. Basically.
Oh yeah, that I knew. But he didn't put on a facade. He didn't make it like obvious.
Right,
like many others do, and I think a lot of people do. Like, I mean, it is fun. It is fun to do it and just be like, "I'm Batman." And it's like, that was fun. I got that out of the way. It makes you smile a little bit, but then but to just do it in your regular speaking voice and lower it a bit, that makes more sense.
You know what? And it does kind of sound like more intimidating. Like, you know, you always say like, "Oh, I'm Batman," you know, and it sounds like, you know, a little like intimidating and stuff. But when he does his speech and he's like, "I am vengeance, I am the night," and he's like doing it in his regular, like, powerful voice, he sounds intimidating. It's like, this is Batman. This is like someone who, if he appeared in my room in the shadows out of nowhere, I'd be fucking shitting my pants. Like, you know, like, like this is like a scary Batman. And, you know, I think Batman the Animated Series really did a good job of, like, or it was the closest, at least, I don't know, there might have been some stuff, like newer stuff that's as close, but like at that time, it was the closest Batman media that was to the comics. Like it was pretty much like watching an animated comic.
No, I would say for sure that it was the closest to the source material that they could get, and they made sure to do that. I remember watching a documentary, and like Bruce Timm was talking about it, and he was saying we wanted it to be as close to the comics as possible, and they dove into, like, and you could really see the care that they put into it, because they made because they developed every character as best as they could, so you saw many sides to them. Like they developed they especially focused on the villains and developing them, where you could empathize with them and you could really see like what happened, and just how they got into this mess, and why especially you could see that with Two-Face, where he feels it's like he's already done so much wrong that it's impossible for him to be redeemed, so he has to lie in the bed that he made, and Batman is constantly trying to like tell him, listen, you can rebuild and you can be okay, and the city will forgive you. And he's reluctant to do it, and he shows fleeting moments where there is still good in him, and he can do it, but it takes there's so much that's already gone that he knows that like he can't find the strength to fully get rid of the id, and Batman. You see the empathy that Batman has for him, and you see that like the way that they animated the eyes really told you everything on that show.
Yeah,
like if you really pay attention to the characters' eyes and their facial structures and everything, they made a point to make sure that reflected the tone. And you could, and you know, of course, the vocal delivery helped push that message through, but you could really feel the emotion from the show. And you could see Bruce Wayne being vulnerable and Batman being vulnerable, and it was something you never saw anywhere else. And you really almost never see it in anything else. And that's one of my favorite things about that show. But even like Clayface, how Clayface is terrified at what he's become, and so he decides to get his revenge on the gangsters. It's like it takes very logical approaches as to where the show would go, as to where the character arcs would go, And the same thing for Mr. Freeze. You understand what he's going through and why he feels like he has to do what he has to do. And like the most interesting thing I think about these shows is that Batman really tries to help them. Now, I don't know if that's part of because it's a kids show and they needed to put something like that in there, but or if it was just a creative direction that they were like, no, we need to highlight that Batman really is the good guy here. Like it can't just be cops and robbers. Like we need to really put that into perspective that he is human. We need to remind people that, and that the villains are also human too in some way. And that they don't have one, like no character has one mode or one dimension. They made every character 3-dimensional, and that was what had you connect to all of them.
Yeah, this is like the first time in a Batman media, besides maybe the comics, because again, the comics are a separate thing. In like other media other than the comics, that we actually see the villains as like, being like portrayed with depth and not like just like cartoon villains that are just like, putting like a big friggin' cartoony bomb in the friggin' bank vault so they could blow it open and get gold, which was oftentimes how Batman's rogues gallery was portrayed. Like Mr. Freeze was like a petty crook,
Yeah.
Batman the animated series made it so the reason why he was robbing and doing what he was doing is because he was trying to save his wife. Right. He was a tragic character. And Two-Face was a tragic character because he was, like the acid, the acid was thrown on him at the fucking courthouse, and he just became like fell into this dark hole, and it was like the first time in like a media franchise besides besides the comics that like all these characters were portrayed in this way. I think, I don't know if it like, they were just like, didn't think that like villains could be portrayed successfully, even the movies, even the Tim Burton movies, Jack Nicholson's Joker is great, but he's just evil for the sake of being evil, essentially. Like, it's not like, Batman the animated series, although I think the Killing Joke wasn't technically part of the animated series continuity, but again, it was a film that starred Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. So
I'm glad that got a theatrical release in some capacity. I made sure to see that.
But it shows like even Joker, who's like the most demented and most evil of Batman's rogues gallery, is like a tragic figure.
Yes, and that's lifted directly from the Killing Joke novel,
right? Exactly,
which is one of the best. If you have never read it, then I strongly suggest that you do. It's one of my favorites, if not my favorite graphic novel.
Yeah. And Batman, it's just the animated series, like the portrayals of the villains and of Batman and the Bat family are like basically became the standard for how they're portrayed in all media after that.
And that's that's never happened before or since, right? that the gold standard is the cartoon.
Yeah. And even like, Harley Quinn was like created for the animated series specifically as just a like Joker's sidekick. Like it wasn't like they were trying to make a breakout character, but she became a breakout character and is now like one of the biggest, like most recognizable faces in DC.
Yeah. Yeah, and they made you care about her too, because her whole story is just how she fell into this and how she got tricked because she had like a Florence Nightingale effect on one of her patients, and
basically turns into Stockholm syndrome.
Yes, exactly. And Joker, being the Joker, saw this, knew this, he felt the attraction, so he used her as his escape route, and she's pretty much just always been like just another pawn in his game. And it's sad because she really does truly deeply care for him and love him, and and we see repeatedly goes to the ends of the earth for him, only for him to just like not really give a shit about her at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there are also and also the Riddler too. They had you make a lot of these characters in the comics were not really taken very seriously in the comics. Like as you said, Freeze was a petty crook. The Joker was just like chaotic for the sake of being chaotic.
Yeah.
And Two-Face was just kind of a crazy guy who was obsessed with like the gimmick. And the Riddler too. The Riddler was also a petty crook who was just like, I leave questions and I rob banks. That's it. There's nothing more to me. Where even here, he was a super genius, and his arrogance was his biggest flaw.
Yeah,
because otherwise he probably would have gotten away with every single crime. But his arrogance leads him to, and there's also a psychological part too, where he wants to get caught. Like, he wants to get caught. Like, the whole thing is a game to him.
Yes.
But, and it's just really interesting how he self-sabotages at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of interesting layers, but the other thing is the strength of this show also helped develop the characters in the comics in future installments. Like, there's a lot of character development and arcs and personality traits that are lifted from the show into the graphic novels now, and that's obviously the influence of the artists and the writers growing up with this and being influenced, and they're wanting to inject that into what they're doing, and why wouldn't you? And it's just amazing to see how this show has really influenced Batman in general. It changed the DNA of Batman.
Yes.
And we could not do that without the voiceover work. All of the actors involved, from Conroy to Mark Hamill.
They were like,
even
obviously
Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs was a terrifying Scarecrow.
Yeah. And
God, it was scary.
It's like, we're obviously Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill take center stage because they were Batman and the Joker, and they probably both appear in more episodes than everybody else. But they had a star-studded voice cast.
Yes,
like Ron Perlman played Clayface, and Roddy McDowell is the Mad Hatter. It's just a huge star.
Tara Strong is Harley Quinn now, but I don't think she was the original Harley Quinn.
No, Arlene Sorkin was.
Yes,
the original.
that's who it was. I couldn't get her. I couldn't think of her name.
Tara Strong pretty much based her entire voice performance on Arlene Sorkin's version of Harley. And even what's her face in the new movies in Suicide Squad,
Margot
Robbie basically based her voice on like the original Harley Quinn, Arlene Sorkin's performance. So really everything Batman is like somehow influenced or based off of Batman the Animated Series. That's how influential it was. Like today, 30 years later after it premiered, and we're still like, it's so ingrained in Batman's DNA. It's like you can't think of anything Batman without hearkening back to the animated series in some way.
Right. It's just not possible.
No. It was such a groundbreaking cartoon, and it's so good too. Like, that's the thing, is like it holds up today. You could sit down and watch Batman the Animated Series and you would think it was like made yesterday. That it's just so good. The animation is crisp and clean, and the style of animation is really good. Like, it's just like the way they portray the characters. It's just, everything looks great. And
the music is the music and the overtones of that show is also spectacular.
Yeah. Again, what did they have before that was the 60s Batman series, which, with Adam West, which had like stupid, 60s music.
I mean, that's what the time called for.
Exactly. But like, this actually made like you think, okay, it's like this dark foreboding, based off of Danny Elfman's score from the movie. Right. And he actually wrote the theme song, but then I think the actual music for the show was written So Danny Elfman did the original thing, but then Shirley Walker also did a lot of the music. Harvey Cohen. There's a number of composers that did music,
yes,
and they really, it was like this darkness that, like, it really just set the stage, and Gotham looks like it's this Art Deco, like neo-Gothic style of all the buildings and stuff, and everything it's like a noir film almost.
Yeah, they really captured. I mean, the only other way that the only other thing that they really could have tried is just doing it in black and white. That's the only thing that possibly could have made it, like, even more, that's the only thing that they could have done to make it as noir as possible, is to make it black and white. But oh god, it was just great. Bruce Timm and Paul Dini just put all of this stuff together. And also, you have to thank the casting director, the legendary Andrea Romano, who got all of these people in the room to do this show. Interestingly enough, Mark Hamill was not the first choice for the Joker, and it was Tim Curry. Yeah. Tim Curry, and there is test footage of Tim Curry, which
he actually recorded several episodes already.
He was good. He did things that you'd see. I forget what came first, but you would it was similar to his Pennywise performance.
Yeah,
and it was good, and it was scary. But I think I just think that Mark Hamill took the cake on this, and he had also just
iconic.
I mean, he's also the last person that, like, at the time that you would think would be in that role. I remember the first couple of. I mean, I remember when I was just like a teenager, like, and I played like Wolverine's Revenge or something, and I saw I started seeing his name on things, and I was like, there's got to be a guy with the same name. Like, I would see him on the Adult Swim shows a lot, or like Metalocalypse, and then I'd see Wolverine's Revenge, and he's the lead, and then I'd see something else, and then I'm like, there's no way that Luke Skywalker is doing all this, and
and he was.
Yes, he was. Yes, in fact, he was. Just the guy is just unbelievably talented. He's way more talented, like, as a voice actor than he ever was on camera, and it's not saying that he's not good on camera. If you're good in the booth, you're good. If you're good on camera, you're good off camera. It doesn't make a difference. But you have so much more freedom when there's not a camera on you for some reason. Like, you could really, you could play a lot more when you're in front of a microphone.
Well, and it's interesting too, because if you ever watch the recording sessions of Mark Hamill,
he's very animated. I mean, the body,
so animated.
Well, you have to. You have to. Your body comes across whatever you're doing physically. The physicality of what you're doing will reflect in your recording.
Yeah.
Like, you have, like, movement is essential to any form of acting.
Yeah. I also, I want to mention, like, Mark Hamill. I think his tribute to Kevin Conroy was, like, one of the most, like, poignant. It was like he could really tell that Mark was, like, so impacted by it. Like, he was just, it was like losing a brother for him, because he was just like, it was like, for him it's someone that you literally you're going back and forth with for years, because you're the main villain, and he's like the main character, and it's just like, you learn to, like, work. It's let me see if I can find it real quick.
Well, do you learn how to synergize with with each other? It's you develop such a bond. Yeah. Not just on your professions. How, this is a very niche industry, so you're already tight knit enough as it is just by being part of the same tribe, but also it's just working together, and the professionalism and the friendship and just all of those things that the two of them must have learned from each other. Yeah. That, like a friendship of 30 plus years. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah.
How could you not feel that way?
You can't. And you know, he posted a picture of him and Kevin Conroy. You know, I guess they were doing some voice work, so they were in the studio, and you know, had said, you know, stunned by the loss of this brilliant actor. Words can't express my admiration, respect for the man. I loved him like a brother. Yeah. And you know, it really is like, you know, it's just those two were like really like a dynamic duo, and like, you know, the way, you know, for a while, Mark Hamill had said that he wasn't going to do the Joker voice anymore because it had like affected his voice so much. Doing that voice, it like really like damaged his vocal cords.
Well, and, for doing that for 30-something years, there is a deep strain that gets into. I mean, when you're doing a lot, you have to take a breather. Like when I'm doing an audiobook, I can only go for so long, and then I have to stop for the rest of the day or the rest of the night. And the next day I can't talk for a good portion of the day.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, and that's just doing things in my normal speaking voice, where I could only imagine the stress that it's putting on his voice delivering a performance like that, where he really stresses the vocal cords to go where he needs to go.
Yes, and the laugh, you know, the laughing, and you know,
and you're exhausted. Your body the next day feel like you feel drained later in the day. You can't talk, and you have to shut up and have tea, and you could really just you need like a little notepad to communicate with your spouse or significant other.
Yeah.
It was funny. Like after dinner, she would say we'd start a conversation, and I'd say I can only finish part of this sentence. So I'd have to stop what I was doing, drink like water or tea, and then I could continue, or I needed and then by like the fourth day, I just had like a notepad, and I was just writing her my answers.
Well, so, you know, he had said that Arkham City was going to be his last role, and it was like, you know, the end of that, where, you know, where the Joker is like, you know, the cure. I mean, not to go into a huge explanation of it, but the Joker is like dying basically, and Batman has a cure, and you know, is kind of contemplating on whether to cure the Joker or not, because obviously, you know, the Joker causes so much death and destruction, and like no matter how many times he gets put away, he breaks out and does it again. And so the Joker kind of jumps him, and Batman drops it and breaks it. And the Joker's like, you know, obviously like devastated. And, you know, Batman goes, you want to hear something funny? After everything, I would have saved you. And, you know, and then the Joker just goes, that is pretty funny, and just drops dead.
Yeah.
And just, you know, without those two in those roles doing that, like, it would not have worked. Like, their chemistry and the emotion between them is just so, like, it's just so perfect. And it's just such a poignant moment. And like, it's like, you feel sad for the Joker, this evil fucking person who kills people and destroys people's lives
and has fun doing it.
Exactly. And you feel bad for him. You know, they just brought, like, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill just brought an emotion to the characters that, like, no one had ever done before. And I would say no one really has done since. They've done it in different ways, but not like,
I don't think you could have such an impact like this.
No.
I think this whole show was one of the rare moments where everything is perfect and lightning is caught in the bottle.
Yes.
In every corner of the room. And
I would say
it can never be replicated.
The only Joker performance that came close to having the impact as Mark Hamill's Joker did was Heath Ledger's, but it's in a different way, because it's a different style of Joker that Heath Ledger did, you know. So, you know, it's you can't really, it's hard to compare them too, because Heath Ledger purposely went in a different direction with the character. You know, he didn't want to just be another Mark Hamill clone or Jack Nicholson clone, you know? So he did his own thing, and it worked really well. But, you know, for me, it's just that chemistry between Conroy and Hamill, and it just was so good, and it made the show so great, and it really made, like, the Joker feel like a real, like, arch villain. Like, it made, it wasn't just, like, some throwaway, like, villain that was there, and, like, or, like, you know, like other shows that do it where it's like the arch villain doesn't really feel like he has that much of a connection to the hero. Here, it's like they are like completely entwined, you know, Batman and the Joker in the animated series. Like they're so, it's like a yin and yang pretty much. Like they're that's how close they are. You know, they're polar opposites, but they're so like closely connected that like it, and there really hasn't been a chemistry like that in any Batman since.
No, there hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it sucks. You know, it sucks knowing that we're never going to hear another Kevin Conroy Batman again, and, you know, I think it's going to be a long time before we get a Batman that's as good as Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not to talk down about any of the current actors playing Batman or any of the actors that have done it in the past, but it's just the gold standard is Kevin Conroy, and that's it. As far as the Batman and the Joker are concerned, the gold standards are, and will be for a very, very long time, if not forever, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, to talk more about Kevin Conroy's life, he lived in New York. I wish that I had ran into him. I never did. This is one of the instances where I did not run into a celebrity that I wanted to run into. And even if I did, I think I would have just said hello. I appreciate everything that you've done, and you know, and then I would go do whatever it was that I had to do that day. He was part of a all-star Juilliard class.
Yes.
He briefly roomed with Robin Williams, who also studied at the same time as him, Christopher Reeve, and Keith David, and we've talked about this a little bit.
Kelsey
before.
Grammer
And Kelsey Grammer. That's yes, and probably many other actors that went on to become very famous people that we're leaving out, but just imagine what it must have been like to have all of those people in the room.
Oh my god!
At the same time,
and like an acting class where they have to like go and like do scenes and stuff.
Oh yeah, just seeing a Shakespeare production with them in it.
Yes. Oh my god.
What would that look like?
It would have been awesome.
Yeah. Robin Williams was, but the interesting thing about Robin Williams in that one, I think he's the only one that did not graduate.
Oh really?
Yeah. I think Lawrence Fishburne might have been in that class too, actually. I don't know.
Again, another great actor.
Yeah.
It's just like
great actor. Not sure, not 100% sure if he was in the same class. Maybe he didn't even go to that school. I feel like I read that he did, but I don't. I could be wrong. But Robin Williams did not graduate Juilliard. In fact, Robin Williams was one of the people where his teacher was like, "You really don't need to be here.
Yeah,
like you're already really, really good. Like there's not much else that we could do for you. You need to go out and be discovered. Like there's no reason for you to stay here." I also am not sure if his grades were great because I think he hadn't been going to class as much because he wanted to chase girls, which nothing wrong with that. But also he knew how good he was. And they were like, "You really don't even need this program. Like you're too good. You could go be a superstar or something." Yeah. And they were like, "Go to LA. Like you should go to LA. They have a great comedy scene or something." And that's where he packed his bags and went to San Francisco. There's a great book called Robin by David Itzkoff. It's one of my favorite biographies. That's I should probably reread it again soon. But I mean, Robin Williams was my favorite comedian ever. So that's,
he's great. He that was another huge loss.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the show about Robin Williams. I'm sure we will have a Robin Williams tribute episode at some point, because how could we not? But this is about Kevin Conroy. The interesting, the interesting thing that he enjoyed theater a lot, and he was also on camera at the beginning, like a little bit more in the beginning of his career. He had done a couple of TV shows and things. But he really had started. Just working. It really just started getting into animation, like a little bit more in like the early 90s, but he was in TV. He was doing a lot of TV and productions from the early 80s through the late 80s, and then sometime in the 90s he started was really where he started getting more and more voiceover work, and it was almost strictly with Warner Brothers.
Yes.
A lot of what he did. I'm sure he did many commercials and everything else, but the bread and butter of his work, a lot of it came from Warner Brothers. And in the later years, he was a lot more into the conventions. You'd see him a lot on conventions, and he'd be on every panel that he could. He was great. I will say the interesting thing about his film and TV, about his early on-camera stuff was he played a lot of gay characters, and he played them with dignity. Unlike many other characters at that time, there was very stereotypical and like you'd see a lot not really being portrayed well. Like it basically was like, every gay guy was just horny all the time and always just wanted to get some guy, whether or not the guy was interested. That was like a standard recurring gag, that he would go after a straight guy, and then there would be like a whole like same-sex Pepe Le Pew thing, and very distasteful or very over the top, very flamboyant and everything. And he would instead portray them with dignity, because, well, they're just people. They like the same thing. That's it. Yep. It's just a part of you. It has nothing to do with it. But this is, of course, because he was gay, and I did not know that until I was reading his obituary. It seems like he lived a very private life. But
he didn't tell anybody that he was sick either.
No, he didn't tell anyone that he was sick.
He had intestinal cancer, which is what he died of. And much like Norm Macdonald, another great that recently passed away of cancer, he didn't tell anybody, at least not publicly.
Yeah.
Norm Macdonald didn't even tell any friends that he was sick. He just eventually,
he just went.
Yeah. So, it's a tragedy, because from all accounts, and from everybody that knew and worked with Kevin Conroy and everybody that had met him, he was just a class act, 100%.
Yes, he was.
After the September 11th attacks, he volunteered to cook for police officers and firefighters. It's just, the guy was like, a stellar human being, and it's just such a tragedy that he was taken so early from us.
Yeah, 66.
Yeah,
not great.
And even going back to like Mark Hamill, to his relationship with Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill once said that when they offer me roles now, I say, "Is Kevin doing it?" I don't even have to read the script. If Kevin's doing it, I'll do it. And I think that's why he came back to do Arkham Knight, because he had said that Arkham City was going to be a last role as the Joker because his vocal cords were so messed up. And then when Arkham Knight came out and they were going to have him again, I think he did it because Kevin did it.
And that's also why he did the Killing Joke.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So again, because they were a dynamic duo. You really could not like have better actors filling those roles,
right?
Than those two. They're great, And,
right. And I mean, just to back it up just a little bit, what I was going to say was that I was talking to my friend Alex about this, and also it was him being cast as a gay man was not, you wouldn't often see gay men playing gay characters
right.
At that point either, and he played it with he played the characters with dignity and a lot of self-respect and everything, and he played it appropriately, and also what we were saying, I mean, I have uncles and I have various relatives and friends that are gay, and I don't care. It's just your sexuality is a part of you. It is not your personality is what matters. I don't care I don't care who you love. I just want you to be safe and have fun. And yeah, I have nothing but respect for this guy. He's this guy was my entire childhood.
Yeah.
And parts of my adulthood. I could always turn to Batman.
Yeah.
If anything, if anything's bothering you, kind of now with just, even just talking about him passing, there's always Batman.
Yeah.
I could always go back to Batman. It can always cheer me up. I can always read. I can always read a Batman. And the other thing is, his voice is so embedded into my brain that when I read a Batman comic, I can't picture, in my head, I'm picturing his voice.
Yes. And a lot of people,
I'm sure many people do.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that it's so iconic that people read the comic and can't help but hear Kevin Conroy's voice and can't help but hear Mark Hamill's voice.
Yeah, it's impossible to not.
Yeah,
it's
and
impossible.
That's
to not.
myself included. It's just that's he's become my headcanon of how Batman sounds.
Yeah, there is nothing else.
No,
there's nothing else. There's a Batman. There's a Batman. There's a Batman serialized podcast. I forget what it's called. I think it's just called Batman Darkness or something like that, or Batman Dark. I forget what it's called. It's not bad, but I couldn't. I think I listened to half of the first season or the first season, and I couldn't get into it because the voice on the other end. I forget his name. He's in a lot of Jordan Peele's movies, and he was. I haven't seen Wakanda Forever, but he was in the first Black Panther too. He was was of the rival tribe.
Okay.
The guy who helps him at the end. I forget the guy's name. Very talented. He's the voice of Batman and Bruce Wayne in that one. It's just not Kevin Conroy's voice. I have nothing against the guy.
Yeah. They were allegedly there was a Batman animated series.
Winston Duke, that's his name.
Okay. There was a Batman animated series audio drama in the works with the original cast. I don't know if that's still in development or what's going to happen now with that. Now that Kevin Conroy has passed on, I mean,
I hope they were able to finish it.
I do too, and they can't. If they didn't, they can't do it now.
They can't replace him.
Without. No, he's irreplaceable.
It's impossible. I mean, this is and if they try to do this, I really hope that they don't try to do that. They don't try to do the AI voice stuff. I don't like that. I mean, just being in that industry, I don't like it. I don't think that the robots are going to take my job, but I don't like it. I don't want a synthetic voice, and I definitely don't want a synthetic voice. I don't want my voice speaking to people after I'm dead.
Yeah.
Using new words that someone else put in my mouth, or words, or I don't like that idea. I just if I'm dead, let me die. Don't you can only resurrect me with memories. You can't use any part of you can't license me after I'm dead. You can't.
Yeah.
All of my all of my copyrights and everything, they're null and void, and you can't use them. Once I'm gone, I'm gone. Yeah, so I hope that they don't go that route.
I hope so too. I mean, every article that I see about it is from December of 21, and there hasn't really been much since then. So I don't know what's going to happen now with it. If it's finished,
how much did you know in December 21? Had they was it just in production, or was it?
Every article that I see from December of 2021 is saying that it's in production. So, you really can't say how much they finished. Who knows? Maybe they have a full season. Maybe they only have a couple episodes. It would be interesting to hear, but I can't find any news of when it's coming out or when it's, going to be available.
Mm-hmm.
Which sucks, because that would be, again, it's our last time we're ever going to hear Kevin Conroy as Batman, and with the same writer as Batman the Animated Series, so it's it's all doubly awesome right there,
Yeah, his last convention was in Connecticut in July, so he did appearances up until nearly the very end.
Yeah,
it's not great.
No,
I think. What's your favorite animated series episode?
That's so hard to even say. It's so hard for me to even pick one. I think the one, I don't know the title of it, but the one where they're going, Bane has this whole plan, and he's teaming up with, I think, the Riddler, and I think it was from the New Adventures of Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Or the new Batman Adventures, and Bane is has the Riddler, and I forget who else, maybe Poison Ivy, and they're all teaming up, and so Batman has Superman wear the Batman costume, and then go after Bane, and Bane tries to hit him, and he just blocks it, and then kicks, absolutely destroys Bane, and all the other villains are what the hell is happening right now? That was one of the better ones. But there's just so many. There's so many good ones. It's so hard to.
Almost Got Him is a classic that a lot of people
yes.
like.
Yes,
that's a really good one. I think my favorites might be the Two-Face episodes, the Two-Face origins. Those might be my favorites. Both parts. I also really like the first, I think it's the first Scarecrow episode with Jeffrey Combs. I forget if it's Fear of Victory or something else. You know what? Let me just look at the episode guide here.
I really like the movies. Batman.
The movies. Batman, are excellent.
Yeah. Batman and Mr. Freeze was amazing. Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker was fucking phenomenal.
And also Mask of the Phantasm is
great.
Is such an all three of those are incredibly underrated.
Yeah,
I actually prefer the animated. I actually prefer the animated movies to the live action.
I kind of do. Well,
it's so much better.
Definitely the 90s ones. Definitely
the 90s ones for sure.
Yeah, because the 90s live action movies were just not that good.
Yeah.
And they're fun to watch, but they're not good by any means. And we talked about Batman and Robin, so Anybody who wants to learn our opinions of that, go listen to that episode.
Mm-hmm. You go back a summer ago.
Yeah, but Batman: Mask of the Phantasm actually was released in theaters, again was unheard of at that point for an animated superhero movie to have a theatrical release.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
and I haven't watched it in a very long time. That one, but I may still have the DVD. I'm not sure. Yeah. I mean, now you can watch it on HBO Max, which is really cool that you can even get it there.
Well, yeah, until friggin' HBO goes out of business.
Well, yeah, until they pull that too and just get rid of it because they. I don't know.
And then they get bought by Disney and ruined.
Every company is too big, and every big company is too big, and none of them know what the hell they're doing. Isn't that scary, guys?
Yeah.
Even the people at the top don't know what they're doing because the companies they're running are simply too big. They're simply too big. Where's the friggin' episode guide here? This is pissing me off.
I like that the Phantasm was very, very similar to Azrael.
Yes. I was always hoping that they would bring Azrael into the show, and they never did. They brought him into the video games, but they never brought him into the animated series show. I always was hoping that they would do that story arc, and they never did. I always hoped that they did the Nightfall story arc, and they never really did. They had parts of it that they had that they borrowed from, but they never quite went all the way with it. I mean, it would have been hard. It would have been hard to see it.
It would have been hard for them to portray it on a children's show.
They would have had to do it as a movie.
Yeah. They kind of, they did a little bit of Death in the Family when they did Batman Beyond Return of the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
They altered it a little bit because, obviously in the original Death in the Family, it was also Jason Todd. Yeah, and Jason Todd gets murdered by the Joker. And that was actually by fan vote. Nobody liked Jason Todd, so they're
they voted that he would die.
Yeah, so they kind of basically borrowed that, where Tim Drake gets kidnapped by the Joker, but he doesn't get murdered. He gets brainwashed into being the Joker's son, basically.
Yeah,
and then he ends up killing the Joker, which basically traumatizes him and causes him to retire from being Robin.
It is Fear of Victory. Okay, I was right.
Okay,
just throwing that out there. Also, another favorite, the one that I watched when I came home from the Brothers War pre-release. If anybody plays Magic, they know what I'm talking about. I was watching the Beware the Grey Ghost episode, and it was I got sad watching that one because it's both Adam West and Kevin Conroy, and they're in the same room, and it's so cool, and it's. And there's that heartfelt moment where he's like, where Bruce Wayne is talking to the Grey Ghost actor, and he's like, "You were my hero," and he's like, "Really?" He's like, "Me?" And he's like, "Yes, he's like, you were such a big part of my life." And then they team up and everything, and it was very cool. I think the villain is the Toymaker in that one, and they introduce him, but it's Simon Trent, that's his name. And it's so interesting, but I also got really sad because I was like, they're both gone.
Yeah.
So, it was bittersweet. It's one of my favorite episodes because I love the dynamic where he meets his hero and the guy who basically inspired him to become a crime fighter, and he helps him redeem himself. So, I really love the story of that episode, but I also am always... now I'm always going to look at it differently because they're both gone, but I hadn't really, it hadn't dawned on me until then. Until I was watching it, I was just like,
yeah,
this sucks. But yeah, the animated movies are just unbelievable. And now they've actually made the proper Death in the Family one.
Yeah,
where it's a choose your own adventure type of thing, so you can choose for him to live, and it's like there's not really a lot of choices.
Yeah,
in there, and that's to keep the spirit of the contest of so that they could make alternative endings because of the voting, and that's it's kind of a cool idea. It's not one of the better animated movies, but I appreciated it for what it was. It was still good.
Yeah,
it's just the bar for the animated. It's the bar for the animated movies. It's very high. Anything Batman animated, the bar is very high. So it's not.
Yeah.
If it's just okay, that's really that's the best that you could hope for, is to just be good.
Also, they kind of much like anything in comics, characters never really die in comic books, basically.
No, they don't.
Except for Uncle Ben.
Yeah, but, Uncle Ben got the short end of the stick.
Yeah, because Jason Todd does come back as Red Hood eventually.
Yeah, which they had written that in anyway, into the comics, and Red Hood is another very popular character now too.
Yeah, well, especially after Batman Arkham Knight. Because he, spoiler alert for anybody who's not played that game, the Arkham Knight is Red Hood, and it's Jason Todd.
I actually didn't know that. I never played the Arkham Knight.
Oh, well, there you go.
I mean, listen, I didn't know when I was ever going to play it. I had meant to just watch the cutscenes by themselves as a movie for the longest time, and I never did it. So that's my fault. It
is a great game, so you should play it. But yeah, I mean, if you haven't played it now, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, the Arkham Knight ends up being Jason Todd, and then he becomes Red Hood after you kind of redeem him, basically. So yeah, so that was the cool thing about Arkham Knight, is that there's a lot of flashbacks, and they flash back to both Death in the Family with the whole Jason Todd thing. They also flash back to the Killing Joke, where the Joker, there's a flashback where Joker paralyzes Barbara. And because in Arkham Knight it's Oracle, she's not Batgirl, she's Oracle, right. So she's in the wheelchair and stuff like that. So they have that flashback to show you that too. But yeah, it's just what else can you say? It's just fucking Batman the Animated Series. It's just so good. The movies were great. Everything about it is great. There's no bad thing tied to Batman the Animated Series.
No, nothing. It's impossible. It's impossible for anything bad to come out of the animated series because of all the talent involved.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the Creeper. Although Crispin, his last name is why am I so bad with names today? Crispin Freeman. Crispin Freeman. Okay. He him being the Creeper. I loved it because he cracked me up how over the top he was. But yeah, I mean the Creeper is just a tough character to for anyone to enjoy anyway.
Yeah,
but everything that they did with that show, you couldn't touch it. It was everything was really fantastic in the way that they did it. And yeah, we're looking at it through rose-colored glasses, but also, can you name anything now that even comes close?
No.
There's not. The 90s was a very special time for animation. A lot of lightning was caught in a lot of bottles, and it's not going to be duplicated. There was just so much talent. It's not to say that there is not a lot of talent now. There's more talent than ever before. But this was before it was celebrated in the way that it is. This this was a time where if you got the daytime Emmy, it was like, all right, who cares? Or like if you got a cartoon, like on-camera actors viewed voiceover artists as like just scraping by, or like the bottom of the barrel, or like, oh well, it's not on camera, so what do I care? Or like whatever. Like it wasn't respected, and it's still not as respected as it should be. But it is getting better, and it is gaining a lot more respect and more traction. The downside to that is that there's more and more people deciding to be voiceover artists every day. So I am increasingly, every day I have more competition, but it's like, you know what, that's what I signed up for, so I don't care. I at the end of the day, it's a very friendly competition. Like, I want you to get, I know I can't. That's the other difference between that industry and the on-camera industry. The on-camera / theater is more cutthroat, where the voiceover industry is just not, because it's like, all I've got is this.
Yeah.
There's, if I can't do what you need, there's nothing that I can do about this. Yeah. Like, you can't, I can't lose weight, or put on weight, or get toned up or anything. There's nothing that I could do to my body or physical appearance that could make me get the role. Or I can't be British for you. Or I can't be, perfect British, so I'm not going to try. So, this is it. Or I can't be a woman. I can't possibly be a woman with this. I got what I got. If it's not what you're looking for, then I have a friend who could probably do that for you. That it's a very giving industry where people recommend other people, and I've seen it happen. It's really cool. And it's we teach each other how to hunt, and we teach each other how to fish, and how to get more work. It's a very giving community, and I really like it. And just everybody is very nice there, because we're all trying to do the same thing. So it's very cool. And I think I like it so much better than I never wanted to do on camera stuff anyway, but this. It's a very warm business to be in. It's hard. It's very hard, but it's a very rewarding business to be in. But yeah, at this point in time, it's getting the respect is coming. It's definitely getting there. There's more respect and more attention than it's ever gotten. More you see a lot of A-listers opting for and taking the voice roles, which doesn't always rub me the right way. But the appreciation is there, and it's coming. But at the time, during the 90s, there was not as much respect given to voiceover artists, or anything on camera. Actors considered it beneath them a lot of times, or if you were on your way out, or if you were towards the later stages in your career, or if you weren't beautiful anymore, basically, then you had to be off camera, and it was, I guarantee you that anyone in those booths is 10 times better than 90% of the on-camera actors. I would even go as high as 95% of the top on-camera actors in the world. I guarantee you, very few of them hold a candle to a voiceover artist.
Yeah.
That's where that's where the best acting is.
Yeah.
Because it's you have to connect with text.
Yes.
That's it. You have to connect with text and copy.
And you have to put emotion through your words instead of using your face to express emotion, which, there are plenty actors that could do only, like Robert De Niro is the perfect example. He can act without saying a word just by his facial expressions, right? But when you're a voice actor, you can't do that. People don't see your face, so you have to put all the emotion in your words, and without overacting,
Right.
So it's challenging. It's definitely more challenging than a lot of regular acting gigs, I think.
Right. Because you have to think, I think that you have to do more character work when you're doing voiceover. You have to think more about the character that you are voicing. You have to think more about the story that you're telling, because you have to convey that.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're doing it on camera, or when you're doing it like physically and people are watching you, the person, act, you have to connect with the audience, but your approach is very different. You have to think, you have to try not to push your physical gestures. Like, you can't force, you can't say, you can't have it in your head that when your scene partner says, I have to go to the store, you can't put it in your head, oh, I'm going to go get, my character gets angry, so I'm going to throw the bottle on the floor. I'm going to knock the broom on the floor.
Yeah.
And yell. You can't think, oh, I'm going to do that every time. Or you can't, the minute that you think about doing it, you're it's exposed.
Yeah.
You have to put the thought into the character, and you have to just do whatever comes naturally, and you have to just sit, and whatever gesture you do in the moment, you have to do it in the moment. You can't think about what you're going to do. You have to it has to just, whatever comes out, and you say the line however you say the line, but you have to just vote, you have to try to transport yourself to another place. When you're in a tight little walk-in closet that you've modified, or in just a tight space, if you're lucky and you've got a whisper room or a studio bricks or something, or if you're in a real recording studio and you've got, you've got the big money coming your way, your body kind of just does things and everything else comes out, because your focus is not on your body. Your focus is really just on keeping the same pitch and tone. You're not real, and you're your focus is on your breathing and your delivery. It's not on, but you're also not forcing it. You're trying not to think about, oh, I have to do an up swoop here. Oh, I have to do every third thing. The music has to be there. It's there's your thought your thought process goes more into your character, or at least what the copy is saying, and trying to understand it and communicate with that, rather than what people are gonna think who are watching you or anything. And there's a million different ways to read the copy, and there's a million ways to connect with it, but how do you connect with it? That's really the thing. There was something that I had to do for a British e-learning company. I had to audition for this thing. I've done about 6 jobs with them since, so this is something that I got. But the copy was, it was a demonstration thing for it was a disease treatment box of some kind. And it was and the copy was it was a sick kid. Right? This is completely made up. This isn't based on a true anything. It's just let's just say the kid's name is David. It's like Damien is 11 years old. 11 months ago, he started feeling sick, and then he started feeling more sick, and his parents took him to the doctor, and he has this disease. They have to drive 6 hours back and forth to the doctor every 2 weeks just to get his regular checkups. But we have a way that he can just do it at home or something like that. And I'm thinking, and I'm reading it, and I'm thinking about it, and then I'm just like, this is Damien, and I just start riffing, and I'm like, okay, this is Damien. Damien's 11 years old. Damien used to play baseball. He can't play baseball anymore. He really misses he misses the way that the freshly cut grass smells when he's going past the first baseline. He really misses just catching a fly ball in the outfield. His favorite thing to do was rounding third because he knew he would go home and he knew that he would be sending his teammates home, and he'd be doing his job as a teammate, and he'd be helping his team win. He really always wanted to be the captain of a baseball team. He always wanted to be a New York Yankee, and now he can't because he has this disease, and he doesn't know if he's going to make it tomorrow. So he's scared, and his parents are scared, and they're terrified for him, but they're trying to keep it together. None of that was in the copy.
Yeah.
None of that was in the copy. There was nothing, there was no backstory about this kid.
Yeah.
But then when I read it, this is Damien. Yeah. Damien's 11 and a half years old. And he's been very sick for the past 11 months. His parents have to drive 6 hours to the doctor to make sure that he can get his medication. But there's hope. We found a way where he can do it at home. And then I got the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's a whole different way of looking at acting. It's a whole different way of telling a story and connecting with the audience and with the character that you're portraying. So, or whatever you're doing. So it's definitely it's a whole different ball game than just live action acting, real. So I'm glad that it's becoming more and more respected as a profession, voiceover work and voice acting. And I think it's thanks to people like Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill that have just are such great actors and primarily voice actors.
Yes, and that's not to mention. I mean, there's plenty of others. There's Rob Paulson. Yes. There's Kevin Michael Richardson. There's Tara Strong. There's Steve Bloom. There's many others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keith David.
Yes. And Keith David's one of those people that could do both equally as well.
Yes.
So it's
he's one of the few that does it both on and off camera, but he's always immaculate in his performance. Yeah, which we spoke about during the Spawn episode a few episodes back.
Yeah,
but there's just so much. I'm glad that there's more of an appreciation for it.
Yeah,
and it's getting there, but it's gonna.
Yeah,
it's still gonna take a bit of time.
Yeah.
If you want to watch anything, I would also, other than watching the Batman animated series and playing any video game with Kevin Conroy's voice print on it, I would suggest you watch John DiMaggio's documentary, I Know That Voice. That's what made me want to do this. And it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite documentaries and just movies in general.
Yeah.
And Kevin talks about the soup kitchen thing at large in that, and he speaks about a lot of what he's doing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
but I think we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Kevin Conroy.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Batman, for our childhood Batman. Rest in peace. Our thoughts and prayers just go out to his family and friends and his husband and every, anyone who was lucky enough to know him or to have met him briefly. Like, bless you.
Yeah.
You are truly blessed if you had ever encountered this man in any way.
Yeah. I didn't get to meet him myself.
I would love to.
Hopefully we'll meet him in the next life, you know.
Hope so. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for being here tonight and just listening to us talk and marvel at the work of Kevin Conroy and just the life that he led. And I hope that I hope that his family and friends are okay and in the time of need. But thank you all for joining us, and if you've got a Batman story, and whenever we do end up putting this on YouTube, please, please feel free to just, let us know in the comments, or just in general, if you want to just send us an email and just, say, hey, I really liked it, or if, or like, I hope that we made you feel a little bit better if you're grieving. That's really the main point. That's what I'm trying to say. It's hard. It's hard. Words are hard sometimes.
And you know what? We're lucky that we do have such a huge body of work that you can go back and listen to.
Yeah.
And just it's not like he'll live on through his work.
Yes,
which is the only thing you could really ask for.
If there's a modicum of comfort, that's it.
Yeah.
But I wish he was still with us for selfish reasons, but.
Yeah.
He was in pain. I'm glad that he's in a better place. And
yeah.
But I hope that and whoever you are in digital media device land, I hope that you're okay too.
Yep.
All right. I've been Chris. This has been Why Does This Exist? Actually.
And I've been Rob. Botch.
I can't even say it right. Okay, let's say that again. This has been Why Does This Exist? I have been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
There we go. And remember, everybody, question everything.
Good night.